Let's start at the beginning, but keep things simple now. Didi, China's Uber, was dominating the ride-hailing market, branching out into robo-taxis, and it even decided it wanted to make its own EV, and it sought Xpeng's help to do so. Everything was coming up roses for Didi, and then they went to IPO, and things took a turn for the worst. 2 difficult years later, and Didi decided it no longer wanted to make an EV. So Xpeng, seeing the future potential, bought the whole lot, including the robo-taxi unit. Gulp. So in addition to Xpeng's recent robo-taxi announcement, is the final result of the other half of that story. This, the Xpeng MONA M03, a smart EV with expectations of ADAS that surpass this price point. I'm Will, and this is China Driven. There is some confusion online about the MONA M03 and the original Didi project. According to Xpeng, this was never intended and has never been designed to be a ride-hailing EV. From the very start of the MONA project, the brief has always been to create a budget-friendly smart EV for consumers. So how budget-friendly is it? Supposedly between 100 to 150,000 RMB, or around 14 to 20,000 bucks. Exact prices and trim levels, your guess is as good as mine, and in this day and age of price wars, there's a lot of last-minute changes anyway. So why does Xpeng need another compact sedan if they already have the Xpeng P5, which despite a 2024 update, still isn't really moving the sales needle much? So it seems strange to almost double down. My gut tells me as Xpeng starts to kind of reach up a little bit in price point with the likes of the G9 and the X9, that the MONA M03 may be a testbed to see if customers will respond well to a lower price sub-brand. A sub-brand that offers lower price smart EVs with a much higher level of ADAS than is typically the norm in this price segment. New Xpeng, new styling. This is not Xpeng-esque at all in its styling. There's no lightsaber up front, but this MONA M03 is part of a new, I guess you can call it, sub-series within inside the Xpeng brand, at least for now, and therefore it does have a very distinct styling compared to the rest of the model lineup. But here are some key features about the MONA M03 styling. Firstly, these T-shaped headlight clusters partially sunken into the front literally mirror the rear taillights, which is an interesting idea. So the windscreen is raked at 63.4 degrees, which is supposedly the most in this class and undoubtedly for aerodynamics. And there's lots of aero features on the MONA M03. For example, it has active aero in the front splitter, something you won't find on other vehicles in this price point. So these are the 19-inch alloys available on the MONA M03. And they're wrapped in Michelin E Primacy tyres, but you can go for the 18-inch aero-style alloys, and they reduce the drag coefficient over these alloys by 0.013. And back here at the bottom of the D-pillar, you have these little fins which guide the air over them and kind of splay the air from the back of the car in order to reduce turbulence back here that sucks the car backwards, all in the name of aerodynamics. Every little bit helps. Whether you like the exterior styling of the MONA M03, I think you can appreciate Xpeng's styling when this has a drag coefficient of just 0.194, the lowest of any car in the world. It wasn't that long ago that we were divided over a certain slippery MPV's exterior styling, and I don't think that this is as divisive as that was. That low drag coefficient helps with range, and they say on this car that there are 15 key areas where they improved the aerodynamics, and that increased the range by 60 kilometers. And couple that with what seemed like extremely efficient motors with just 11.5 kilowatt hour per 100 kilometer usage, and you start getting decent ranges from modest sized batteries. Both batteries are said to be the latest generation LFP blade batteries, either a smaller 51.8 kilowatt hour pack with a claimed range of 512 kilometers on the CLTC, or a larger 62.6 kilowatt hour battery claiming a 620 kilometer range. Charging is claimed to take 26 minutes, 30 to 80%, adding 200 kilometers in 15 minutes. So inside the MONA M03, the interior is modern and it's minimalistic. And we don't see that much minimalism inside interiors at this price point. I think it takes some balls to not overly bedazzle your interior to make it quote unquote luxurious looking. But overall, I like it. Now, the material quality in here is, well, this is a car price between 100 and 150,000 RMB. And the material usage in here is perfectly fine. The silvery bits are not really metal, but they look really good. And, you know, there's some soft touch up on the top of the doors. You have this kind of acoustic paneling on the door cards. And overall, the aesthetic, it works. It's nice. Yes, the plastics are a bit hard, but this is an incredibly cheap vehicle. And this thing is about the tech. You get a 15.6-inch central HD touchscreen. There's no instrument panel and there's no heads-up display in here, very Tesla-esque. It's not my favorite configuration screen-wise. I don't like having to look over for my speed. But then again, I jump into a lot of different cars. I'm sure if this was your daily, you get used to it pretty quickly. I mean, the speed is literally as close to this top corner as it possibly can be. So there is that. It's powered by a Snapdragon 8155 CPU and it's snappy and responsive. It's fairly intuitive. If you've ever used an Xpeng product and you're familiar with their infotainment system, whilst this is not exactly the same OS, it feels very much like an Xpeng product. It also has a customizable dock, which is nice to put on those kind of shortcuts that you like to use personally. And there is also a lot of shortcuts in here, and it's all around touch gesture, similar to if you have an iPad. So you can use fingers to swipe across, you can swipe up to go back to the home screen. You can even do some pinch movements like zooming in and out on the map, as well as pinching back to the main screen as well. So very much like an iPad, gesture control is very intuitive and it works really well. Xpeng claim this is an industry first in maybe the most important department of Chinese smart EVs. They've moved the game on in in-car KTV. Basically, what they've done is that when you are on the sat-nav page and you're playing music, what will happen is that the lyrics will appear up on the screen in time with the music, and you also have this kind of waveform at the bottom of the screen, and different things happen, like leaves fall down and whatnot. It's very much like a computer game as you're driving along the road, but hey, it adds a new dimension to in-car KTV. Wow. And that music is going to be pumped into your ear holes via an 18-speaker 7.1.4 spatial audio surround sound system. The front seats come with heat and ventilation along with a memory function and lovely hidden ambient lighting, which looks classy. Okay, so in the back of the MONA M03, in terms of space back here, now this is a compact sedan. It has a wheelbase of 2.815 meters. I'm not the tallest person, 1.7 meters, but I have, you know, a decent amount of leg room back here. Now, if this was a 198 centimeter bloke and another 198 centimeter bloke sat in the back, then legroom may become a bit of an issue. Headroom, I mean, I have just about a fist above me. So if you are 198 centimeters, 6 foot, this may be a little bit low for you. However, your head will be up against a really nice, massive panoramic roof. And that lets in, you know, loads of light, but it does isolate 99.9% of UV rays. So that's a good thing. As far as the materials back here, the same as the front. You get this kind of metal look, the soft touch plastic up the top, and this fabric kind of paneling on the door cards. For features back here, I mean, you've got 2 USB-C sockets. You also have an air outlet, which is nice at this price point. But apart from that, not much else. Obviously, you also have microphones for the 4-zone AI voice assistant, which is nice. No cup holders as I can see back here. This doesn't fold down into an armrest. But in terms of comfort, The seats feel really nicely padded, and for someone my size or a little bit taller than me, it's more than acceptable back here. No front, no worries, because the MONA M03 has an absolutely gigantic boot. It also has automatic open and closing, not something you see on a lot of cars in this segment. But when I say it has a huge boot, I mean huge. 614 litres, that is class leading and then some. There is also some space under the boot floor as well. But how exactly does a car this size have such a huge rear cargo space? Well, some of it's down to packaging. The rear legroom is on the modest side. It's within what this class of vehicles normally are, but probably one of the things that is leading to this huge cargo space is something that people think is a bit of a drawback about the MONA. I'm talking about the fact that it has a torsion rear beam, but you see, the thing about a torsion rear beam is it's just less bulky than a multi-link rear suspension setup. And so you get an absolutely massive boot, which some might see as a big advantage. I'm not automatically against a torsion rear beam. A well-tuned torsion rear beam is better than a poorly tuned multi-link. And I have a bit of a bee in my bonnet about companies who put in the best components, but are poorly tuned or not being used their full functionality just so they can point on paper and say, oh, we've got X, Y, and Z. So you can argue that a multi-link is more comfortable and, you know, for us reviewers who jump into cars back to back, we may be able to tell you the shortcomings of such a suspension setup. But for your average consumer in China, they probably care more about tech and features, and they just want an acceptably comfortable ride. And you're not getting into this thinking, oh my God, this is teeth shattering. This is more than comfortable enough. And if I didn't tell anybody it had a torsion rear beam, your average person wouldn't ask any questions. And because of the cost savings of using a torsion rear beam means we can get more for tech and features in here. And also you get better packaging, as I said before, and you get a massive boot as thanks. Front suspension is a McPherson strut. MVH is controlled well enough, no huge issues with overall cabin noise. So in short, it drives well, rides well. Don't worry about the torsion rear beam. It really isn't a problem. Hold on to your hats because this car is pushing a monstrous 160 kilowatts of power and 250 newton meters of torque, and it will catapult you to 100 kilometers an hour in 7.4 seconds. Speed is not the point of this car. It has different priorities. It will do 0 to 50 in 3.3 seconds, which is perfect for nipping about in the bustling city. But like I said, this has different priorities, namely one of them being efficiency with that low 11.5 kilowatt hour per 100 kilometers. One thing I love about this, something I fell in love with the P7, is just the way the nose responds to steering inputs. You can just place this thing on an absolute dime. It is great to drive. And it's got me super excited for the upcoming P7 Plus. Now, Xpeng are keeping some of its cards close to its chest, and we won't know everything until the launch event, which kind of points to there potentially being some big announcements. So first, what we do know, this will come with 20 plus sensors, 7 cameras, 2 milliwave radar, many more sensors than other cars at this price point. And we know that it will come with LCC, that's what Xpeng calls the combination of adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist function. It will also have 360-degree perception. It also has lane level 3D rendering, is capable of handling complex junctions and on-ramps, and it will also adopt Xpeng's SR surrounding reality, which is its ADAS visualization overlaid onto a 3D map for the sat-nav. And at this point, it's already ahead of the rest of the competition at this price point in terms of ADAS. The MONA M03 will also come with a full scenario auto parking feature, capable of handling parallel parking, standard reverse parking, and reverse parking into diagonal bays, with or without lines. Xpeng claim it covers 100% of parking situations with a 95% success rate. But there's a key piece of information missing about the MONA M03, a surprising omission actually, and therefore I'm going to make some Bold predictions. Pay attention, because this may not age well. We don't have any information about the ADAS chips in the MONA M03, like zero, zilch, nothing. Which is a bit strange unless you're trying to hide something. And so on to my big brain prediction. I think this is going to have NOA, which at this price point would be insane. And with the amount of sensors that it has here, I think a highway NOA is doable right out of the gate. But I'll go a step further. I think that this might be the cheapest car in the world to have a city NOA function. Maybe not on launch, but I think they'll announce that it will be coming. And before you think that I'm just kind of being pie in the sky, wishful thinking, let me tell you where my thinking comes from. Xpeng have already said that they want to go vision only for their ADAS. And rumours are the upcoming P7 Plus will be LiDAR-less. And that car definitely will have city and highway XNGP, the NOA function from Xpeng. So if the Xpeng P7 Plus can have city XNGP without LiDAR, then maybe so the MONA 03. And if it does, that would be industry-leading, world-beating, truly unheard of at this price point. And it would catapult this smart EV from pretty good for the money to why would you buy anything else? It's a bit of an awkward price point for direct comparisons. There's some overlap with the BYD Qing Plus and the Deepel SL03. But if my predictions about NOA functionality are true, then those competitors will be seriously lagging behind when it comes to tech. So this is not exactly a have your cake and eat it situation. There are a few trade-offs, but unless you're a starry-eyed college kid, that's life. Hey, I want to be a vet, and now I'm reviewing cars in China. The mysteries of life.